Well, welcome. We are in our very last section of the diet trap solution. And whoa, good stuff, huh, Melanie?
Yes, it has been.
Well, that's cool. Well, I'm so glad you're here tonight. And we're getting, so often whenever we do any kind of eating plan, it's so hard a lot of times if you get off of whatever you're doing and to get back on. And I know I've been kind of struggling with that for the past few months. I've been wanting to get back on and like just having trouble. So this really gave me some really good insights and got me back on. Yay.
Oh, yeah.
No, but it is possible. So I thought she said good stuff. And she starts at this chapter 10 and said that almost every dieter who has had trouble losing weight or maintaining a weight loss has had a specific kind of sabotaging thought. After eating off plan, something like, I've blown it. I might as well give up and eat what I want for the rest of the day and start again tomorrow. But just think, what if every single time in the past you'd made a mistake with your eating, you had immediately recovered and gotten right back on track? What if you had automatically said to yourself, no big deal, and just continue to eat in a normal, controlled way? Wouldn't you be better off now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Making a mistake can derail you for a day, a week, or even a year, but it doesn't have to. Once you learn to see a mistake in eating that is just as that, a mistake, and not a license to eat wholly out of control, it will become much easier to get right back on track. And I love that she says, making mistakes is truly a part of the learning process. And yes, it is. It's such a learning thing. And so the initial dieting mistake is not the real trap. The trap is what happens afterwards.
That was very ominous.
I know. It's like, oh. And it's like we just beat ourselves up. The first trap, she says, is the I've blown it trap. Tell yourself that you'll get back on track tomorrow. So what stood out to you in that chapter or that section?
Look at my underline. I just got done reading it here tonight. Well, her analogies of throwing yourself down the stairs is like if you tripped over a stair, you wouldn't keep falling down the stairs, or if you broke a dish, you wouldn't break the rest of the dishes. Just that whole analogy, which was interesting. It's like, oh, because it was a mistake, and that's how I have to look at it. Because I am the worst. I'm so self-critical, so hard on myself, and just kind of reframing that as it's a mistake. It's not that, not that big of a deal.
And with that, in our program, we talk about not even a mistake. We try to make it a choice so that you're choosing. We're trying to make that so that even the strength and resistance muscle goes so that it's like, and so sometimes we eat without thinking. So and I guess that could be a mistake, but we try and get it to the point where it's a choice, and it's like, we choose, and you can choose off plan, but then not beat yourself up. The goal is getting right back on. And I've got some clients that they can do that. They choose to do whatever, and then boom, they can get right back on. And others, we just struggle. It's like, So it's like kind of, he said he just felt demoralized. He said this guy, he did really well for weeks or months, and then something inevitably happened, and he got off track. He felt demoralized and abandoned his weight loss efforts altogether. He said he kept telling himself, I've blown it for the day. I might as well keep on eating and start again tomorrow. And it's like, whoa. So the other one you said, those examples were great. The other one she said about, hey, what if you missed your exit on the interchange on the highway? Man, I can't talk tonight. So you miss it. You just go, oh, well, you just keep on driving 5 more hours in the wrong way, or do you change directions? And it's like, hello, yeah. You'd immediately change what you were doing to avoid further negative consequences. And so on that little card, she said, it makes no sense to just keep making more mistakes or keep taking yourself down that wrong path. Yeah. And when you learn to stop yourself after a first mistake, you put yourself in a better position than if you stop after 2 mistakes. Oh. And you got to keep remembering that calories do keep adding up. We kind of forget about that too, and not all about the calories, but oh man, it adds up there. And Yeah, you can, let's see. That's kind of like you put a more positive spin on it. You made a mistake, but you can save yourself so many calories and start strengthening your resistance muscle the moment you catch yourself and stop. So, I mean, even if you were halfway through whatever you were off playing, you don't have to eat the whole thing. I can't tell you how many times I've like thrown something out. It's like, okay, I gotta get it out and dump it in the trash can or even spit stuff out. It's like, okay, I don't even need to swallow this. It's like, okay, I don't want this bad, you know? Like, oh.
I remember thinking, I better eat all this to get it out of the house because I'm not going to have it tomorrow. You know, that's real healthy thinking there.
I saw some name or something on Facebook or someplace on one of the social media things. It's like day 1 in the diary journal. Got everything out of the house I shouldn't be eating. It was delicious. like, whoops. How many of us do that? Have our last meal. It's like, yeah, or last whatever. And she said, there's no such thing as blowing it for the day. Every bite of food I continue to eat has extra calories. The more calories I eat, the more weight I gain. Getting back on track at any point puts me in a better position than if I wait one moment longer. And so I think that's good in recognizing it. And hey, when we're recognizing it, putting those brakes on and just getting back up and going. And when she talks about on 201 there, we found that people who never had a weight problem and never struggled to lose weight, they just accept their eating mistakes.
Oh.
They keep their mistakes in perspective. I think that's where, like you said, both of us, we tend to go back and it's like, had that one moment, but you keep going, oh man, why did I do that? I feel so bad. You know, you just keep rehashing it. And in almost no other area of life would you think it made sense to compound one mistake with another. It's like, okay, true. That's good to get our brain around that one.
Yeah.
And the second trap in this area is the self-criticizer trap. This kind of goes with what we were talking. You beat yourself up about making a mistake. And she said this gal named Marissa constantly beat herself up about her weight. It's so frustrating. And this is exactly what I said to Lisa when I first started 3.5 years ago. I'm able to be so disciplined, or I said I was successful in all these other areas of my life, but when it comes to dieting and losing weight and keeping it off, I'm a failure. And I think that was that, and that's what she says in there. Basically, I'm like, bam, that was me. And she talks on 2-3, losing weight entails learning. And it's like, oh, very cool. Was there some things in that section that stood out to you?
This underlining what you said, losing weight also entails learning. So I actually, the third paragraph up from the bottom, page 203, I highlighted the whole thing and put a star, which means it really hit me.
Go ahead and read it, because I have that and all highlighted too, so I agree.
The fact of the matter is that once you make a mistake, the worst thing you can do is reprimand yourself. The only outcomes of self-criticism are to demoralize you further, decrease your self-confidence, and make it less likely that you'll immediately get yourself back in control.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the whole I should be perfect on my diet. It can be very painful when you do make mistakes, but mistakes are an inevitable part of any learning process.
Wow.
And that just really resonated with me because I do make such a big deal out of it. And that whole perfection, I have to be perfect. You know, I'm not allowed to make mistakes. And yeah.
I think it's part of like, or maybe our musician stuff. We practice so hard because you want to be so precise, and we've spent a lot of our life doing that, and we kind of carry some of that over into, you know, all areas of our life, including our eating and that kind of thing. And
I've wondered that before. I've talked with some other musicians about that before. It's like, because we are taught to be perfect. You have the perfection of performing, but yeah,
yeah,
a lot of good nuggets in here.
I remember playing for an offertory or something and hitting one wrong note, which probably nobody in the whole congregation even noticed. But I remember then having that sinking feeling and just feeling so bad, and like I totally failed. Okay, the rest of the song went really well, and you hit one wrong. You know, it's like one of those. It's that same kind of thing here, where and now it's like, okay, if I hit a wrong note, it's like, you know, I realize people aren't paying that much attention, and so we just get that same kind of thing with our eating. It's like, oh well, okay, ate that, move on. It's like every chance we have, our next little bites, our next chance to make a good choice and
right
and move right back on. And
maybe we're getting wiser with age.
Thank
Easier
goodness.
on ourselves. Yeah, because all people, with this, like people come up and they're like, "Oh, that was a great job." "Oh, yeah, but I missed this. I missed this note and I did that." "Oh, you're really losing weight." "Yeah, but I." The yeah buts.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yep, we do, and people don't pay that much attention. It's like, oh man, and
Oh
what
man.
she was talking about 204. I had it underlined. Oh, she was talking about playing tennis, and you know how terrible it was when she first started, but she kept taking lessons and practicing because she wasn't good to start with, and but she loves tennis, and now she says, I knew I wouldn't be very good at the beginning, but I would get better. And I have. Of course, I still make mistakes, just not as many. Not that, yeah, that's true with our whole thing too. And I guess that's what the card is about too. It's just part of the learning process, and beating ourselves up just gets in the way. And I know 205, she said, if she had focused excessively on her errors, she probably would have had a distorted perception of the week as a whole. I think one other section was kind of that same thing where you're kind of like, oh, I just blew everything. But when you really start looking, we don't give ourselves credit for all the good things that we've done and all the successes. Mm-hmm. And so, all those things that we're talking about, those advantages, the basic foundational things that are talked about earlier in the book of, eating slowly, eating all these times, and, giving yourself a pat in the back when you did it right. And like we tend to focus on whatever's the negative. And on 206 too, I had a thing, banish the word cheat from your vocabulary, at least in terms of eating. Cheating on your diet implies you did something morally bad. You didn't. You made a mistake. And I thought, yep, that's so true. And it's not a question of if you'll make a mistake, it's when. Accept your imperfection and move on. Turn your attention to something else. And it's like, yeah. Anything else in that section pop out at you, girl?
I'm highlighting your banish the word cheat.
Yeah, that one, like, because I'm thinking, I hear that a lot of times from clients, so I like put cheating. I said I want to go back now and make notes from the whole book so that somehow I can have a reference. I mean, so often I've got clients that have these different things, and it's like, sometimes I don't really know how to help. This gives me some solid kind of things if they're willing. It's like, I think sometimes people say this stuff, but they're willing to invest in making the changes. And unless we get that mindset changing, you're just going to keep on going. And so, I mean, I think it's awesome. And that you're diving in here is like, yes, let's do this. Because you know what? We're going to grow old and sit in rocking chairs together, girl.
That's right. I know, because I know this has been the piece that's been missing for me. It's just getting that mental,
Well, I think for all of us, and it's like everybody always tells you it's supposed to be a lifestyle, but we're never given the real tools. Like everybody's good at, you can do all kinds of things to lose weight, but it is that long-term thing. And I think that's, where, our program makes a difference. And then this kind of stuff just helps even compound that. So I think it makes it even more.
Yeah, it'll be very useful for you as a coach, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's just understanding more and like, how do you help somebody direct them that way? So it's interesting that she's talking to these clients. It's like, So number 3 is the overcompensation trap. You make a mistake and decide you won't eat anything else for the rest of the day. Have you ever done that?
Oh, yeah.
I've said I would, but I'm not sure I ever really would have deprived myself that much. It's like by the time it came time to eat again, I probably would have been eating again.
I get mad at myself. Like if I do get hungry, I'm like, oh gosh, how am I hungry? It's frustrating.
I know my mom would eat. Oh, I'm not going to eat. That's enough. I won't be eating the rest of the day, the rest of the week, yeah, right. You'll get to see that one. And 208, she says, deciding not to eat anything is a punishment. When you make a mistake, you don't deserve punishment. Not to mention that fasting doesn't work. You usually overeat again later in the day. It's better to modify your eating to some degree than to plan to eat nothing. So just make really healthy choices. So, if you do off, it's not that all or nothing, but then you just keep on going forward, eating the healthy stuff. And, and with us, it's keeping your balance and your blood sugars there.
Right.
I didn't have a whole lot else underlined in that one. Did you have anything else that stood out?
No, that one wasn't. Well, I always thought.
We did this test at the beginning. There's different ones that are going to hit all of us differently.
Sure.
And then here, this one I have a big arrow at number 4. The stuck off track trap.
Yes.
You have a tough time restarting your diet after you've gotten off track. So that's what I've been kind of dealing with. And it says struggling to get back on track is much harder than being on track. Because once you build up that positive momentum, dieting gets easier. And it's something interesting probably happens in your memories. You begin to believe that dieting has always been a struggle and always will be. You'll lose confidence in yourself. You forget how much easier it was when you were consistently following your plan. And you don't realize that it will be easier again once you're back on track. And I think that's what I've learned this whole thing and trying to get myself back to really doing and getting to where I really want to be. And I try and tell my clients, it's like, do everything you can to stay on it. You're going to make, there's always going to be little things, but it's so much easier to make sure you go all the way to where you want to be, because then you can manage it and you can optimize. But it is hard to totally get your mindset when you've given yourself that extra little rope to totally flip it back on. And
I can imagine. Oh my goodness. But I feel like now I feel like you were saying, have the tools. I know what to do, and we have the resources. Whereas before, I just remember feeling so overwhelmed trying to figure out, well, what plan do I do? How do I even start? Where do I begin? Because there's so many, and you don't know what's right for you. So that's a extremely positive thing that I have to thank you for.
Well, I'm thankful. It's all comes down the chain there. It's like, oh man. And we do. And we learn that you stay mindful. You don't avoid the scale. And there's all those things that will help, and we'll keep, it doesn't stop when you hit your optimal weight. We keep going. You're stuck with me until you kick me to the curb. Like, you know what? We're always going to be encouraging one another. And that's part of the thing. It's like we're part of a community that, we're always going to be. And there's all seasons for different stuff. And, it's never going to go flat line. We're always going to have little bumps, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And just remember how good it is when you are on track. Oh my gosh, think how good you feel, and just like, and you get feeling better. And boy, when you get on that scale and you just those victories and, shoving those donuts and hiding them, it's like, they're just some little, the Timbits. I kind of amazed, like, woohoo. It's like, that was like kind of, I don't know why it should surprise me, but it kind of did. Because that wasn't something I could go into. So,
wonderful. Yeah. This other day I told Chad, I'm like, I wish I could bottle up this feeling, just be able to remember what this feels like when I feel in control and the clothes feel good and I just feel better. And I just wish there's a way to bottle it up.
Well, and recognizing it, I think we take it for granted when we're there. And I think remembering, that's part of the thing, is that remembering how bad we felt. And that's why even writing down some of those things, and it's not a bad idea to write down. And that's even when we ask you some of those questions at the beginning, I've got some of those things that, do you remember when you started? This is what was hurting, and this is how you felt. And, if we can just keep that fresh in our mind there too, it's like, oh my gosh, remembering how good we really do feel.
Yes.
And she says, even though it's hard to get back on track, it's 100% worth it. Because being off track and feeling out of control feels crummy. Eating out of control usually doesn't feel so good. Being on track and staying in control feels so much better. And it truly does. Mm-hmm. And that last paragraph, she said, she realized she'd made a mistake when she was on track. She hadn't been perfect, but the difference was that every time she did make a mistake, she recovered right away. She wanted to remember that, so she made herself another reminder card. And Bob in 212 just says, focusing on a few strategies will boost your confidence and leave you feeling much more in control. So it is just kind of, like you said, those basic foundational things. And I think remembering the benefits and, we're always going to have something ahead that we're wanting to achieve. We always have to have that next thing to kind of go. So even when you're optimal weight, what is it do you really want to do? What do you want to feel? What is your goal? And have something out there to keep us pulling forward, because otherwise you're just going to go, if you're not going forward, you're going back. And it's like, we don't want to go back.
No, I don't.
Yeah, no. And so anything else in that little section stand out?
I think it's just pretty much the same thing. On 213, I had starred one of her, how she always gives the final synopsis. It's just that whole thing. You do feel better when you're on track. And that somehow there's freedom within the boundaries. And it's weird, because it's like, I don't really have freedom to eat everything I want, but somehow it's freeing. Kind of a, yeah.
That's a good way. Makes you think about that old image they give you of the guardrail. And it's like if you go up that steep mountain pass, if there was no guardrail there, oh my gosh, but having that rail there just made it comfortable, even though you probably could drive through it. But it's like, you just know it's those little things, or God has put boundaries, and not because he hates us, because he knows what's best for us. So there's some things that he's told us not to do, and it's not because we aren't supposed to do them. It's like he knows what the consequences are. And I think that's kind of what we remember. It's like little things. It's not to be restrictive, but it is to kind of give us that comfort. And
because we all have those things in our life that we can't control. We're not we lose control around them.
So true. And then she's got this number 5 is the all or nothing trap. Once you eat something bad, you tell yourself you're totally off track. And I thought in regard to our program, I put a great note that this was great, the optimization phase for the ones we actually get to our maintenance weight. This guy, he either viewed himself as completely on track or completely off track. And when he viewed himself off track, well, the more he says that, the more he gets used to it as an excuse to eat whatever he wants. And so I think this is a good mindset. And said, stop labeling some foods as bad. I mean, foods are just food. They're not necessarily bad or good, but it is a matter of having some control and eating them in reasonable, which most of us have not been real good at that. And to ask yourself if you have a good food, bad food mentality.
Oh, yeah. I definitely do.
Yep. And so I think that's part of the thing, to kind of learn that there's really, those donuts aren't bad. They aren't good, necessarily the best choice for you, but they're not bad. It's not like, okay.
Yeah, but I do futurize a little bit. I probably shouldn't, but just kind of preparing myself for what you call optimization. Is that the when you're goal weight? It's like, okay, so how would I handle that in a year, or whenever? And just, trying to figure out how I will handle those situations. And
well, I think part of that whole stop, challenge, choose thing. We're learning to stop, and then it's like, instead of just grabbing them and stuffing them in our mouth, stopping and thinking, do I really want that? Okay, I do. Okay, well, could you cut a piece out of it and be really satisfied and just enjoy a little bit of it? So if we can learn to have a little bit of control where we can enjoy some, and then we're constantly, Mary Jo's been such a good example of getting on that scale. And if she's up 2 or 3 pounds, okay, she just watches her eating and just reins it back in. And I think that's part of the key, that I never learned that skill before. So I think, my problem is I never got to that total point. So I never had that switch on because I never totally got to where I wanted to be. But I don't know, it just kind of like got off. So now it's like, okay, the goal is to get where we want to try it, and then we'll be able to officially do this.
I'm hoping it'll be different, because we've talked about that before. It's like, what was my deal? Why wouldn't I have kept myself accountable? But like you said, I don't think it's because I was where I wanted to be. So therefore I felt defeated, I guess. And I just don't know how, I don't know how it happens.
Yeah, and you kind of go brain dead. I don't know what either. It's like it switches off, and all of a sudden you're like, huh? And you stop whatever program. And so if you were doing it with some friends, you probably aren't meeting anymore and talking about it, or you stop going to Weight Watchers or whatever. Yeah. And it's like the goal is like, stay involved in the community. We got our Facebook support group. I'm going to be around as long as God allows me. It's like you've got all those little things to keep on. Yeah. It doesn't have to stop. And that's, I think, kind of keep it going there too.
Yes.
And she said that remind yourself that there is no food you can eat when you're off track that you can't also eat when you're on track. And when you eat it in an on-track, controlled way, you'll enjoy it more because you won't feel guilty about eating it. But that's good.
Where was that one, Susan? I want to know.
That's on 217, the second bullet point.
Okay. That's a good one.
Yeah, I thought so too. And her little summary thing just said, hey, remember, immediately get back on track. Remember, whenever you make a mistake, you have a golden opportunity for learning. So keep on adding to your escape plans as time goes on. And like on 218, she says, making an initial eating mistake, it doesn't have to be a problem. If you've always known how to get back on track immediately after one mistake, wouldn't you have spared yourself years of struggle? If you'd have always known how to get back on track immediately after one mistake, Yeah, we would have spared ourselves years of trouble. You know, it's like, hey.
Well, I guess we had to make those mistakes to learn where we are now.
Yeah, and understand. That's good. Well, that's the end of that chapter. And then we have the conclusion. I mean, are there things in the conclusion that you
Honestly, skimmed through it. It just seemed it was mostly people who had successes.
Yep, she gave a lot of stories.
Right. But I like how she said, now let's talk about you on 228. And I definitely need to dive into that more and, you know, go back and because I, you know, we talked about that kind of skimming through and not really taking the time, at least I didn't, to write my advantages list and, you know, go through each of those steps.
Yep, and really personalized. I mean, it's so much good information. And I love on 220 says the first step, master the foundational strategies one by one. So just going back, and I think with our program, it's not hard to add the food in. It's so structured, but you've got that kind of thing going. And on 225, he said the skills he learned to motivate himself, handle discouragement, accept discomfort. I think that's a good thing too. I've noticed even as I've gotten on plan this week, realizing when I feel hungry, it doesn't bother me. It's like I realize it, but I know that I'm doing what I want to do. So it's like, and that's just a normal part of your body. I'm not going to die if I'm being a little uncomfortable. And a lot of times I want to like, oh, I'm hungry. I better eat something. You know, I don't want my tummy. It's like, it's not a big deal if your tummy's a little bit. It's okay. It's just letting you know. It's like, hey. And I thought too how talking about having these skills would be transferred to taking on new challenges and persevering when working toward goals that are personally meaningful and important. So people had things with their jobs or their families or things that some of these disciplines that they had learned with their eating, they could actually tie to, you know, different areas of their life. So that was kind of cool too.
Yeah, that was.
And the one gal, just kind of like we talked about, she says, I weigh myself every day, and every time the scale goes up by 2 or 3 pounds, I watch what I eat more carefully, and it always comes right back off. So I think that's the skill that's like, yes.
Yeah, that would be so wonderful to be in that place where I could keep myself that accountable and
Yeah. Well, I got so many people that talk about like the evenings and weekends, and I thought she was talking about that stresses, about how a gal at work all day was stressful, and then she would go crazy at night eating. And the lady finally said, you're kind of like almost like you're beating yourself up about the things of the day and going on. And it's like, stop and think, okay, you got to give yourself credit for the day and asking, did you do a reasonable job? And just kind of making yourself okay with the day. And then it makes you feel good so that you weren't, you know, taking those frustrations out and eating them. It's like, okay, day's done. Because, you know, sometimes you can't leave your job and it's like so hard to get it off your mind or whatever else going on in your life. And like, hey, and it's really building those foundational strategies. Yeah, I mean, that was it. You got ways to connect in there. And I like too that I didn't notice it until we were done. It was got that whole nice little index in the back, so that if there is a certain thing you're struggling with, it's a really good. I mean, it's pages, so hopefully be detailed enough that so if you're dealing with a trigger of some point or whatever, you can find it here. And
yeah, that is neat. Wow.
I mean, it's really a good little book. So I think it's great. We're doing something here. So anyway, we're just going to wrap this up, Diet Trap Solution, and over and out. We love it. We highly recommend it. It's good.